Hello, Johnny Cash. Well, I asked somebody to go ahead and put my Lord's Supper cup up so I wouldn't forget Sunday, and they've already done it. So, oh man. How's everybody doing in the rain? Haven't had any new trees fall, I hope. I haven't yet. Had a lot of them fall this year, though. Prayer requests or praises tonight. Yes. Wow. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you for that. Anyone else? Ask prayer for some members of my family. God knows the situations. Uh, Greg, would you lead us in the prayer time tonight? Amen. Matthew chapter 23. Matthew chapter 23. Beginning in verse 13. We began to look at the woes. We talked about in chapter 12 that the Pharisees and Sadducees and Herodians and they were coming up, they were planning continually, especially at night, something that they could do to mess Jesus up, to get him to say the wrong thing, just one wrong thing, so that they could accuse him as being a false in who he was or what he said. And everything they tried blew up on them. Everything they tried did not work. And so when we come to chapter 23, it finally says that the Pharisees and Sadducees just gave up. We're not getting anywhere with this. It's not going to work. So they gave up on harassing Jesus. But as we see in chapter 3, Jesus wasn't going to give up on what he had to say about them. And so he has these 8 woes talking about the Pharisees and Sadducees, and they had to stand there listening to it. Well, all the people, the crowds of people that followed him wherever he went, were listening in. The first one was back up in 13, where he talks about you shut off the kingdom of heaven from the people, for you're not going to enter in yourselves, nor do you allow those who are entering to go in. He calls them of even blocking the way to heaven. Earlier and later, he's going to call them blind leaders of the blind. They're, as the religious leaders, they're supposed to be showing the way. And they don't know the way. And that's a real problem. So the second woe is in verse 14. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you're hypocrites, because you devour widows' houses, and for a pretense you make long prayers. Therefore, you will receive the greater condemnation one day. You remember in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus warned the disciples about when you pray, don't be like those hypocrites who make long prayers. And Jesus warned his disciples, when you pray, you do it just between you and the Lord, to be seen by men, but only to have fellowship with God. Then the third one we looked at was in verse 15. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you travel around on sea and land so you can make a proselyte. You can bring someone into your fold. But when he becomes a proselyte of yours, you make him twice as much a son of hell as yourself. Ouch. Don't tell me Jesus can't get tough. That's a pretty bold statement, isn't it? Kind of like they talk about when a new Christian gets saved in the church, it takes them about a year to backslide enough to catch up with the rest of the members. Because at first they're so excited for the Lord they want to shout and scream, and everybody's saying, well, now you got to calm down now. You can't be like that all the time. Till we get them where we want them, and they lose their excitement. You see, a lot of people say loving Jesus could never condemn people to hell. Well, you listen to what he says here. Twice as much a son of hell as yourselves. The next one, the fourth one, is in verses 16 to 22. Woe to you, you are blind guides, because you say to the people out of your oral traditions, whoever swears by the temple, that is nothing, but whoever swears by the gold of the temple is obligated to fulfill your vow, is what he's saying. You fools, you blind men, which is more important, the gold or the temple that sanctified the gold? And whoever swears by the altar, that is nothing, but whoever swears by the offering on it is obligated. You blind men, which is more important, the offering or the altar that sanctifies the offering? Therefore, whoever swears by the altar swears both by the altar and by everything on it. Jesus taught in the Sermon on the Mount, don't make any vows. That's what he said, don't make any vows. Well, we make vows all the time, don't we? Anybody made a vow today? Anybody use your credit card today? You use your credit card. What are you doing when you sign that ticket? You're making a vow. You let me use your money right now, and I promise I'm going to pay you back. That doesn't work. Putting your fingers crossed. Whoever swears by the temple swears both by the temple and by him who dwells within it, and that's God. And whoever swears by heaven swears both by the throne of God and by him who sits upon it. And so, because of their oral tradition, there's 613 extra laws that they added to God's law in order to simplify God's law, simply made the laws more complicated to understand, and by it wrapped up all the people in bondage, where they didn't know what they could do or what they couldn't do without breaking the law. They were in total bondage. Well, this is the one we left on last week, the fifth one. Verse 23 and 24. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! For you tithe. Well, they were very famous for the fact that they tithed religiously. That was one of the ways they believed they were earning their way into heaven. Because, not the Sadducees, of course, they didn't believe in heaven or the afterlife. But for the Pharisees, they believed by being faithful tithers, it was one more stroke in their favor when they stood before God, where God would say to them, you can come in because you have more good things in your life than you had bad. And a lot of people on earth are basing their hope for salvation on just that. And notice what it says. They not only tithe, but even mint and dill and cumin. They're even tithing on their what? Spices. I mean, they're trying to be so careful that in every area of their life, when it comes to money, that they tithe religiously. Because by doing that, it got the people's attention, and they would look at them and say, look how holy those men are, and they'd appreciate them for the way they lived their lives. But he says to them, in the same way, though you've neglected the weightier provisions of the law, which are justice, mercy, faithfulness. I mean, you should be tithing. He doesn't say they shouldn't, but you should have done the others without neglecting the others. You blind guides who strain out a gnat, and in the same way you end up swallowing a camel. Jesus also had something to talk about that in the Sermon on the Mount. By the way, the Sermon on the Mount is a foundational message for everything else that Jesus is going to teach in his life. You can find it, all of it, somewhere back in the Sermon on the Mount. And you remember Matthew chapter 7, where he talked about judging. And you're judging when you got something in your own eye, or about something you see in somebody else's eye you want to hold against them, when you got this huge log stuffed in your own eye and you can't even see past it to really see what the other person is doing. And so the Jewish leaders had so perverted God's law. And by doing that, it allowed them to disobey its true intent. They tithed religiously of everything, It looked religious and righteous, but their tithing was just a smoke screen, distracting people from noticing that they had neglected the more important matters of the law: justice, mercy, faithfulness. The implication is that they were guilty of committing injustice and setting unmercifully at the expense of other, acting, and always for their own profit. A good example of this is found in Mark chapter 7. Mark includes it in his gospel. Mark chapter 7, verse 9 through 13. Jesus was also saying to them, "You are experts at setting aside the commandment of God in order to keep your oral traditions." He gives them an example. Moses said, this is the real law. This is law. Moses said, honor your father and mother. And he who speaks evil of father or mother is to be put to death. But here's what you say because of your oral traditions. If a man says to his father or his mother, well, you know, I really would like to help you, and I know you need some help, and you're having some real financial problems, and you may not eat this way. I mean, I know you've got a real problem. But you got to understand that the money that I've set aside that I could help you with is Corban, which means it's set aside already for God. I mean, I could help you, and I want to help you, and I would help you if I could, but the only money that I have that could help you, I've already set it aside to give it to God. Corban. And so Jesus challenges them on that. He says, that is to say, that you no longer permit him to do anything for his father or mother, thus invalidating the word of God by your traditions, which you've handed down. And you do many such things just like that. So that's a perfect example of what he's talking about. You take God's law and you so mess it up with your oral traditions, and you get so involved in trying to keep your oral traditions, you're completely missing what God's law has taught you you are to do and how you're to act. So the sixth one is found in Matthew 23, 25, and 26. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! For you clean the outside of the cup and of the dish, but inside they are full of robbery and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisee! First, clean the inside of the cup and of the dish. What do you eat out of? The outside of the dish or the inside of the dish? What good does it do to clean the outside? Clean the inside of the cup. Clean the inside of the dish. And if you do that, probably the outside is going to be clean also. And Jesus, of course, is arguing that the part that comes in contact with the food is on the inside. The part that comes in contact with your mouth and your indigestion system is on the inside. It's the inside that is important. And that is so obvious there, what he's saying to them. You make yourself look so clean and nice on the outside, but you don't worry about what you have on the inside. And it's on what's on the inside that impresses God, because God only looks at the heart. So people can really get our attention, impress us outwardly. And in a lot of churches, you'll have some people who are very good at it, impressing people with their outside. And because of that, sometimes they can get people following them to do all kinds of things, even things that are contrary to the will of God. But it's not what we see. It's what the man is that makes the man who he really is. God sees each one of us where nobody else sees us. God sees me where Patty doesn't see me. I was going to say where my preacher doesn't see me, but I am the preacher. Can't say that. So then in verse 27 is the seventh one. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs. Now, I was looking at my front porch. We have white brick around the bottom of our house, and it gets real black throughout the winter. So every spring, I have to get out my power washer and power wash all that black gunk off my white bricks so that I have pretty white bricks again. On the outside, you look whitewashed. You're so clean and pretty on the outside. You appear beautiful. But watch this. But inside, they are full of dead man's bones and all kinds of uncleanliness. So, you too outwardly appear righteous to men, but inwardly you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. That's from Numbers 19 and 11. You too outwardly appear righteous to men, but inwardly you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Numbers 19:11, actually. Reminds us that back then, if you had any contact with a dead body, it made a Jew unclean for 7 days. Nothing more abhorrent could they hear than Jesus call them a bunch of dead bones. You got to remember, the Pharisees, Sadducees are listening to all of this. Do you think their faces were red? Do you think there were some veins popping out of their neck? One writer wrote it this way: the average churchgoer is beautiful on the outside, but on the inside, too often they are dead in trespasses and sins, because they formed a form of godliness, but they deny the power of it to make them new creations in Christ. And until that happens to you, your church membership is still null and void. It is nothing but hypocrisy. And then he goes on to write, when I read that over half the population of the United States say they are church members, I wonder why in public places I see 99% of the crowd drinking cocktails, using profanity, telling dirty stories. We have a whole lot of marble tombs walking around, spiritual zombies, dead in trespasses and sins. It's like a young man that came up to me after church one Sunday, and he said, Pastor, you see all your members on Sunday morning. I saw all of your members last night when I was at the bar. And then he just turned and walked away. Billy Graham made an unbelievable statement one year. Billy Graham said, I believe that half the people in any congregation that's sitting in the congregation are lost and don't know it. That was coming from Billy Graham. We've been looking as deacons at our church roll, 350 members. When was the last time you saw 350 members in our church? Or 250 or 150? I've been a pastors of churches that have memberships of 2,000 and we run 150 in worship. And if you ask all those other people about their faith, oh, I'm a Christian. The eighth one is found in verse 29 through 33. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! For you build the tombs of the prophets and adorn the monuments of the righteous. And you say things like, well, if we had been living in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partners with them in shedding blood of the prophets. And so Jesus says, so you testify against yourself that you are sons of those who murdered the prophets. Fill up, then, the measure of the guilt of your fathers. You serpents, you snakes, you brood of vipers, how will you escape the sentence of hell? This is Jesus speaking. Jesus was not afraid to talk about hell because he knows hell is a real place. Most people in the world just don't believe hell. Jesus, God is loving. Jesus was loving. He would never send anybody to hell. Well, they need to read Matthew 23. God does not claim you if you have rejected Jesus Christ. The only way to become a child of God is to receive Christ. Because John 1:12 says, but as many as have received him, to them gave he power, the right to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name. These were the same religious leaders who were trying to lead the people to God, and instead, what Jesus is saying, you're just leading the people further and further away. Matthew 23:33 says, you serpents, you generation of vipers, how can you escape the damnation of hell? That's what he's saying, literally. So verse 34, therefore I am sending you prophets and wise men and scribes. Some of them you're going to kill and crucify. Some of them you will scourge in your synagogue, and you will persecute them from city to city. And so what he's trying to say, since you're already guilty of doing the following to your forefathers, you're going to follow in their footsteps and do the same things to other people I will send your way. And all throughout history, we have the martyrs of our faith, the great men and women who stood for God and because of it lost their lives or were punished or thrown in prison. In the 1900s, there were more Christians that were put to death for their faith in the world than had died in all the world wars. And in this century, it's beginning even worse than it was in the last century. Every day in our world, Christians are being put to death around our world. I used to say ISIS, all they want to do is kill Christians and Jews. We live in a world where Christianity is already hated. It's not something to come. And we're becoming more and more hated here in America. So, Jesus claimed that he was the one who was sent. And he also tells them, I'm going to be the one sending more messengers. Which means he's claiming to be God. I'm going to do it. What are you going to do with them? Because he was claiming to do what only God can do. I believe that God has already sent prophets and they have been killed. I think about so many of the martyrs of the faith, Polycarp and so many that we read about, and realize that God has sent just, whenever we think about cancer, I always think about abortion. Because I think when we get to heaven, we say, God, why didn't you ever send us somebody to find the cure for cancer? And I can hear God said, I sent you thousands of them. But half of them you didn't even allow them to live. We never know. I believe at the end of times, God is going to send prophets to this world. And they're going to prophesy the end is near. How will that be received in the world? Huh? What do we see now when someone holds up a sign, the end of the world? Could it be that Jesus sent them as a warning? God always sent prophets to his people before he brought judgment to warn them. And I believe before Jesus makes his final return, God is going to send prophets to warn the world that judgment is on the way. And by the way, those prophets came hundreds of years before it ever happened. So when they start declaring it, that doesn't mean it'll necessarily happen tomorrow. It might be 100 years. But it's on the way in God's time. So he was already talking about what he intended to do once they put him to death. Now look at verse 35 and 36. He says, so that upon you may fall the guilt of all the righteous blood shed on earth. All of that righteous blood that has been with the prophets that we've already sent you, Israel, and you rejected them and you killed some of them. And all the prophets that I'm going to send to the world that you will kill and throw in prison. All of the guilt of all of the righteous blood shed on earth, including my righteous blood, going back all the way to Abel, to the blood of Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. Truly I say to you, all these things are going to come upon this generation. He's holding that generation responsible for it all. And so what did the people cry when Pilate went? Well, I'm washing my hands of this. And the people said, go ahead. Let his blood be on us. and our children. And guess what? Still is today. So, they were guilty of it all. Jesus had already predicted flogging and persecution from city to city. The disciples were going to be some of those. They were going to face that. Remember, Peter and John were flogged the same way that Jesus was, and they were excited about it because they got to go through the punishment the same one that Jesus did. Jesus was going to send messengers, but they were going to be attacked too. And their persecutors were also going to be counted among the murderers of all history, who's guilty of righteous blood that has been shed on the earth. One of the ones who lost his life in Jesus' day, John the Baptist. Another right after he died was Stephen. All of that blood falls on the Jews today. So, he's going to begin talking about the judgment to come, and he's not just talking about the judgments in Matthew 24 and 25 that are going to come at the end of the days, even though he is talking about that. They've got judgment right around the corner. Jesus died around 30, he was about 33. He was born in about 8, which means it's about AD 25 when he's saying these things. In 60, there's going to be a war in Jerusalem. And the whole city, almost the whole city is going to be burnt down. In 70, the whole city of Jerusalem is destroyed. I mean, judgment wasn't just waiting, well, way out there we'll see that judgment. No, they're going to be seeing it in the next 30 and 40 years already. We'll see that when we get to Matthew 24. In Jeremiah 16, verse 10, Jeremiah said to the people as a prophet, "Now when you tell this people all these words that I'm telling you, they will say to you, 'For what reason has the Lord declared all this great calamity against us? What is our iniquity? What is our sin which we have committed against the Lord our God?'" I mean, what have we done? And then Jeremiah was told, "Then you are to say to them, 'It is because your forefathers have forsaken me,' declares the Lord, 'and have followed after other gods and served them and bowed down to them. But me they have forsaken and have not kept my law. And you too have done evil, even more than your forefathers. For behold, you are each one walking according to the stubbornness of his own evil heart, without listening to me. So I will hurl you out of this land into the land which you have not known, neither gods day and night, serve other gods day and not known, neither nor your fathers, and there you will serve gods day and night. For I will grant you no favor." Same as what Jesus was saying here, Jeremiah was proclaiming way back when. So verse 37, 39. Jerusalem, Jerusalem. When I come to this part, I almost hear Jesus' heart breaking. Some of the gospel writers remind us that Jesus went outside the city and was looking back at the city, And he just wept over it, shaking his head. Because he had so much plans for them, so much good things to do for them, so much good to bring to them. And they had rejected him completely. And so he's almost lamenting here. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, who killed the prophets and stoned those who are sent to her. How often I just wanted to gather your children together, the way a hen gathers her chicks under her wing, and you were unwilling. Behold, your house is being left to you desolate. For I say to you, from now on you will not see me until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, had so many wonderful plans for you. I just wanted to, come on, let me hug you. And all you've done is turned against me. In so many other ways. Well, I'm going to stop there because we're going to begin in Matthew chapter 24. And Matthew 24 and 25 are really exciting. Because what's he going to talk about? The end times. What's going to be coming. And the disciples are starting to ask questions. Well, when are you going to set up your kingdom? And I really believe some of the teachings that Jesus gives here at the end of the ministry was some of the impetus for Judas to go out and betray him. I think Judas was one that was so wanting Jesus to show his messiahship and start taking control of the world like the Messiah was supposed to. Go find his white horse and get on it and start leading them. We're ready now. And it just seemed like Jesus was not doing it. He was talking about dying. You cannot die. And finally, Judas said, I'm just had enough. I'm going to make him. If I bring them to arrest him, then he'll have to reveal to them just exactly who he is. I think some of what we'll see in the next couple of chapters was part of the impetus that moved Judas to go ahead and do what he did. Father, we just want to thank you for your word and what it teaches us. This word tonight is very sobering. I mean, this is serious stuff. Jesus, we would hate to hear you ever say to us, you hypocrites. We don't want to be hypocrites. We want to be people who truly are serving you and honoring you. And we're even praying tonight, whether we're listening by radio or whether we're here tonight, we're praying, Lord, make our lives count for you. Show us the things that we need to do. Don't let us waste our time doing things that are unproductive. Help us to do the things we need to do. And help us to do it in a way that honors you, not for the sight of others or for the attention of others, but simply that we would truly serve you, doing only those things that you have for us to do for your glory and your glory alone. Show us what those things are and show us the way and empower us and give us the courage and boldness to do it. We just ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.